The old dragon was dying in the corner of the station's lower market. At least that was what most people thought when they saw him. The small creature was no bigger than a human hand. His scales were dull gray, faded from what might have once been bright silver. His eyes had a milky film over them. He moved slowly, dragging one back leg as he limped between the market stalls. On Galactic Hub Station Meridian 7, nobody cared about small dragons. The station was massive. It floated in space at the crossing point of 5 major trade routes. Hundreds of different alien species came here every day. They bought and sold goods. They met for business deals. They stopped to refuel their ships. The station never slept. Its lights were always bright. Its corridors were always full of noise and movement. In the lower markets, things were different from the clean upper levels. Here the floors were dirty. The air smelled of too many bodies and old food. Merchants shouted about their products. Customers argued about prices. Children from a dozen different species ran between the stalls, playing games only they understood. And in the corners, small dragons begged for scraps. Dragons were common in the galaxy. Most people kept them as pets. They were bred to be small and cute. Some were bright colors. Some could do simple tricks. Rich families liked to collect rare breeds. But old dragons, injured dragons, or plain-looking dragons like this one, nobody wanted them. Kexlar limped past a fruit seller. The large blue-skinned merchant kicked at him without even looking down. "Get away, vermin!" the merchant shouted. Kexlar moved to the side. He did not complain. He had learned long ago that complaining did not help. He wore a metal collar around his neck. The collar was old and tarnished. Strange symbols covered it, but they were hard to read under all the dirt and scratches. Most people never looked at it closely. A group of young Takrin walked past. These reptilian aliens were tall and strong. They laughed at something one of them had said. "Look, another dragon," one of them said, pointing at Kexlar. "They are everywhere," another replied. "Like rats." They walked on, already forgetting about him. Kexlar did not let it bother him. He had heard worse. Much worse. He had lived for over 900 years. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He had commanded fleets of warships. He had fought in battles that decided the fate of entire star systems. But now he was small. Now he was weak. Now he was just another unwanted pet. He smelled food nearby. His stomach hurt with hunger. It had been 2 days since he had eaten. He followed the smell to a new shop. The sign above the door showed a pair of scissors and a comb. This was a barber shop. Kexlar had seen many shops open and close in this market. Barbers usually did not last long down here. The rent was cheap, but the customers were rough. Most barbers moved to the upper levels as soon as they could afford it. He peeked around the corner of the door. Inside, a human was sweeping the floor. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only joined 2 years ago. Most aliens found them interesting but strange. They were emotional. They asked too many questions. They had odd ideas about fairness and justice. This human was a male, probably in his middle years by human standards. He had dark hair and careful hands. He wore simple work clothes. As he swept, he hummed a tune that Kexlar did not recognize. The human looked up and saw Kexlar watching him. For a moment, their eyes met. The human did not kick. He did not shout. He just looked at the small dragon with curiosity. "Hey there, little guy," the human said. His voice was gentle. "You look hungry." Kexlar did not move. He had learned to be careful. Sometimes people who seemed nice were the worst. The human disappeared into a back room. He returned with a small container. He opened it and set it on the floor near the door. The smell of cooked meat filled the air. "It's just some leftovers from my lunch," the human said. "You can have it if you want." Then he stepped back. He gave Kexlar space. He did not try to grab him or pet him like some people did with dragons. Kexlar's hunger won over his caution. He limped forward and began to eat. The food was good, simple but fresh. As he ate, he felt the human watching him. But it was not the stare of someone looking at a pet or a pest. It was the gaze of someone who was genuinely interested. "You're hurt," the human said, noticing Kexlar's limp. "That leg looks bad." Kexlar kept eating. What did it matter if he was hurt? Nobody cared about old dragons. The human knelt down, still keeping his distance. He tilted his head, looking at Kexlar more closely. "That's an interesting collar," the human said. "I've never seen writing like that before." Kexlar's heart beat faster. The collar. He had worn it for so long that he sometimes forgot it was there. It was the last piece of his old life. The last proof of who he had been. The human pulled out a small device. It looked like a phone. He pointed it at Kaxlar's collar. The device beeped and flashed. Then it made an error sound. The translator can't read it, the human said. Wait, it's showing fragments. Fleet Commander. Draken Empire. 47th. The human looked confused. He stood up and got a cloth from his shop. He came back and knelt down again. May I? He asked, gesturing to the collar. Kaxlar had finished eating. He looked at this strange human who asked permission instead of just taking what he wanted. Slowly he nodded. The human's hands were gentle as he cleaned the collar. He worked with the same careful attention he probably used when cutting hair. He wiped away years of dirt and grime. Slowly, the symbols became clearer. The human pointed his device at the collar again. This time it did not beep with an error. It hummed as it processed the information. The human's eyes moved as he read the translation on his screen. Then he froze. His face went pale. His hand started to shake slightly. He looked down at Kaxlar with completely different eyes. Not the eyes of someone looking at a pet. Not even the eyes of someone looking at an equal. The eyes of someone looking at a superior officer. Fleet Commander Kaxlar Vas Draken, the human read aloud, his voice barely a whisper. 47th Burning Fleet, Dreadnought Eternal Flame, Years of Service 843 Empire Standard. The market noise continued around them. People walked past. Merchants shouted. Nobody else noticed what had just happened. The human sat back on his heels. He looked at Kaxlar with wonder and something that might have been horror. You're not a pet, the human said softly. You're a veteran. For the first time in many, many years, Kaxlar felt something he thought he had lost forever. Hope. This human, this member of a species barely 2 years into the galactic community, had done something no other being had done in centuries. He had read the collar. Kaxlar's cloudy eyes focused with sudden sharpness. The old dragon looked up at the young human. When he spoke, his voice was rough from years of silence, but it was clear. It was strong. It was the voice of someone who had once commanded thousands. Finally, Kaxlar said, someone who can read old Drakon script. The human's jaw dropped. Outside the shop, someone dropped a crate with a loud crash. An argument started between two merchants. A child laughed. But inside the small barber shop, everything had changed. The human found his voice. My name is Marcus Chen. I don't understand. Dragons can talk? We could always talk, Kaxlar said. Most of us just stopped trying. What is the point of talking when nobody listens? Marcus looked around his shop, then back at Kaxlar. He seemed to be trying to process everything. Finally, he made a decision. Come inside, Marcus said. Please, I think we need to talk. Really talk? Marcus closed his shop early that evening. He flipped the sign on the door to closed and locked it. Then he sat down on the floor across from Kaxlar. He had brought water and more food. He had also brought a first aid kit and was carefully treating the dragon's injured leg. This might hurt a bit, Marcus said as he cleaned the wound. Kaxlar did not flinch. He had survived much worse pain. But the kindness in Marcus's actions hurt in a different way. It had been so long since anyone had cared. Tell me, Marcus said quietly. Tell me what happened. How did a fleet commander end up here? Kaxlar took a deep breath. He had not told this story in a very long time. 12,000 years ago, my people ruled a large part of this galaxy, he began. We were not small then. We were massive. Each of us was as large as one of your warships. We flew through space on our own power. We breathed fire that could melt through steel. We were feared and respected across hundreds of star systems. Marcus's eyes widened. He looked at the small creature before him, trying to imagine something that large. The Drakon Empire, Kaxlar continued, was powerful, but power makes enemies. Many species feared us. Some hated us. They formed an alliance. For years they fought us. We won most battles. We were stronger, faster, smarter in combat. So they changed their strategy, Kaxlar said, his voice growing bitter. If they could not defeat us in battle, they would destroy us another way. They created a weapon. Not a bomb or a gun, a disease. A plague that attacked our DNA. Marcus stopped bandaging the leg. His face showed horror. The plague did not kill us, Kaxlar said. That would have been kinder. Instead, it changed us slowly, generation by generation. Each child born was smaller than their parents. Just a little bit smaller at first. We did not even notice the problem for many years. By the time we understood what was happening, it was too late. The plague had spread to every dragon in the empire. We tried to find a cure. Our best scientists worked day and night. But the plague was too clever. It had been designed too well. Kexlar's voice shook with old pain. I watched my children born smaller than me. I watched their children born even smaller. Each generation we lost more size, more strength. Within 2,000 years we went from being as large as ships to being the size of your hand. The empire could not survive, Kexlar said. How can you rule when you become too small to press the buttons on your own control panels? How can you fight when you become too weak to lift your own weapons? How can you command respect when everyone looks down at you instead of up? The empire fell. Our worlds were taken. Our technology was seized. Our people were scattered across the galaxy. And worst of all, we were forgotten. Within a few more generations, most dragons did not even remember that we had once been great. They thought being small was natural. They thought being pets was all we had ever been. Marcus sat in silence for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised Kexlar. We have stories like that on Earth, Marcus said. We humans, we almost destroyed ourselves many times. We had wars that killed millions. We had diseases that wiped out entire populations. We had empires that rose and fell and were forgotten. We understand what it means to lose everything. He looked at Kexlar with understanding, and we understand what it means when history gets erased. When the winners write the story and the losers are forgotten. Kexlar felt something crack inside him. This human, this stranger, understood in a way that no one else had in centuries. What do you need? Marcus asked simply. How can I help? You already have, Kexlar said. You fed me. You treated my wound. You listened to my story. That is more than anyone has done in a very long time. That's not enough, Marcus said firmly. You can stay here. I have a back room. It's not much, but it's warm and safe, and you won't be alone. Over the next few days, Marcus kept his word. He set up a comfortable space for Kexlar in the back room. He brought food and water regularly. He continued to treat the injured leg until it began to heal, and most importantly, he talked to Kexlar, not at him like someone talking to a pet, but with him like equals. Marcus told Kexlar about Earth, about human history, about why he had come to the station. Kexlar told Marcus about the Empire, about the worlds they had ruled, about the battles he had fought. But their peace did not last long. On the 5th day, Station Security Chief Vrax came to the shop. Vrax was a Tikran, one of the reptilian species that ruled this sector. He was tall and muscular with green scales and cold yellow eyes. He wore the black uniform of station security with too many weapons on his belt. He walked into Marcus's shop without knocking. Human, Vrax said, his voice harsh. I have received complaints. You are keeping vermin in your establishment. Marcus was cutting a customer's hair. He finished the cut before turning to face Vrax. I'm keeping a guest, he said calmly. Not vermin. Vrax's eyes narrowed. A dragon is not a guest. It is an animal. Station health codes clearly state that animals cannot be kept in commercial food preparation or grooming establishments. He's not an animal, Marcus said. He's a person. A sapient being, Vrax laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Dragons are legally classified as domesticated fauna. They have no rights, no legal standing. They are property at best, pests at worst. That's wrong, Marcus said. His voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's right. You are new to galactic society, human, Vrax said. You do not understand how things work. You will remove the dragon, or I will remove it for you. You have until tomorrow evening. Vrax left without waiting for a response. That night, after closing the shop, Marcus sat with Kexlar. He had his phone out and was reading something. I've been researching galactic law, Marcus said. His face was grim. It's true. Dragons have no legal rights. According to the Galactic Unified Code, your entire species is classified as non-sapient. I know, Kexlar said quietly. But it doesn't make sense, Marcus said. This law was passed 10,000 years ago, right after your empire fell. The species that voted for it were the same ones that fought against your empire. They declared dragons non-sapient so they could claim they hadn't committed genocide. Kexlar looked at Marcus with surprise. You figured that out in one evening? It took me 200 years to piece that together. It's obvious when you look at it, Marcus said. The timing is too perfect. And all the species that voted for that law? They all benefited from your empire's fall. The Tikran took over 12 of your former worlds. The Zephians seized your trade routes. The Morlocks claimed your technology. He looked at Kexlar. This is a cover-up. A legal fiction to hide war crimes. Yes, Kexler said. But knowing the truth does not change it. The law stands. It has stood for 10,000 years, maybe, Marcus said. But laws can be changed. If we had proof. Real proof of what happened. Proof that dragons were sapient. Proof that the plague was deliberate. Proof that the whole thing was genocide. Then maybe we could change things. Kexler was quiet for a long time. Then he said there might be proof. There was an archive. A data vault where we stored everything. Genetic records. Historical documents. Treaties with other species. Medical research. Battle logs. Everything that proved we were a civilization, not just animals. Where is it? Marcus asked eagerly. I don't know, Kexler said. I have been looking for it for centuries. I thought it was lost. But there are others. Other dragons who remember. We have a network. Small. Secret. We search for any trace of our past. If anyone knows where the archive is, they would. How do we contact them? Marcus asked. We can't, Kexler said. They find you. If they think you can be trusted. If they think you're one of the ones who remember. Marcus thought for a moment. Then he smiled. Then we make sure they find us. We let everyone see that you're here. That you're being treated with respect. That someone believes your story. Word will spread. 3 days later, very late at night, someone knocked on the shop door. Marcus was still awake. He had been researching more galactic history. He went to the door cautiously. Outside stood a small figure in a hooded cloak. Marcus opened the door. The figure entered quickly and closed the door behind them. They pulled back their hood. It was another dragon. Younger than Kexlar, with brighter scales of deep red. She wore what looked like tiny pieces of armor, cobbled together from various materials. Kexlar came out of the back room. The young dragon saw him. Saw his collar. Her eyes went wide. Commander, she whispered. Commander Kexlar? We thought all the officers were dead. We thought everyone from the old fleets was gone. Not all of us, Kexlar said gently. What is your name? Srith, she said. I'm only 200 years old. I never knew the Empire. But my grandfather told me stories. He made me promise to remember. To search for what? Marcus asked. Esrith turned to him. Her eyes were bright with hope and fear. The archive, she said. We found it, Commander. We found the archive. Marcus made tea for everyone. It felt strange making tea for dragons, but Sisrith accepted the cup gratefully, wrapping her small claws around it for warmth. Kexlar did the same. They sat together in the back room of the barber shop, 3 unlikely allies planning something impossible. Tell us about the archive, Kexlar said to Sirith. Sirith took a sip of her tea. We have been searching for over a century. There are about 10,000 of us across the galaxy, dragons who remember, who refuse to forget. We pass information through secret channels. We search old Empire sites. We look for any trace of our history. 3 months ago, a group found something on a dead world in the Kessler Nebula. The world used to be called Draken Prime. It was one of our main archive planets. The world has been in a quarantine zone for 8,000 years. The official reason is dangerous radiation levels. But there is no radiation, Marcus guessed. No, Srith confirmed. The quarantine is there to keep people away. Our team managed to sneak past the blockade. They found the archive. It's underground in a massive facility. The power systems still work. The data is intact. Everything we need to prove our history. Genetic records showing how the plague changed us. Treaties with other species proving we were recognized as sapient. Military logs. Scientific research, everything. Kexlar's eyes shone with emotion. After all these years. It survived. Yes, Srith said. But we have a problem. We cannot retrieve it. Dragons have no legal rights. We cannot book passage on ships. We cannot hire transport. We cannot access galactic banking systems. We are property, not people. Even if we could get to the planet, we could not bring the data back through official channels. She looked at Marcus. But humans can. You are new to galactic society. You have citizenship rights. You can own property. You can travel. You can access systems we cannot. Marcus understood immediately. You need a human to go there and retrieve the archive. Yes, Sirith said. We have been searching for a human who would help us. Someone who would believe our story. Someone who would care enough to take the risk. Why would humans help? Kexler asked. They barely know us. Why would they risk anything for dragons? Esrith smiled slightly. Because we have been watching humans since they joined the galactic community. They are different from other species. They get angry about injustice. They fight for the underdog. They have this strange idea that fairness matters more than power. Marcus laughed. That's true. We're terrible at minding our own business. If we see something wrong, we have to try to fix it. I'll do it, Marcus said. I'll go get the archive. But I'll need help. I'll need a ship. I'll need supplies. And I'll need other people. This isn't a one-person job. Over the next week, Marcus quietly contacted other humans on the station. He was careful. He knew that if station security found out what they were planning, they would be stopped. But he also knew that if he told the right humans the right story, they would help. He was right. Sarah Park, a cargo ship pilot, listened to the story and immediately said, I'm in. Nobody commits genocide and gets away with it. Not while I'm around. James Rodriguez, a former Earth military engineer, said, I joined the space program to explore, to make things better. This is exactly why I'm out here. Chen Wei, a data specialist, said, My grandparents lost everything in a war. Their history, their home, their culture. I know what it means to have your past erased. Let's get that archive. In total, Marcus gathered 12 humans. They had different backgrounds, different skills. But they all shared one thing. They were angry about what had been done to the dragons. They wanted to help fix it. They met in secret, usually late at night in Marcus's shop. They planned everything carefully. Sarah would provide her cargo ship. James would handle any technical problems. Chenwei would retrieve and secure the data. Marcus would lead the mission. Kexler and Sreeth would come with them. Kexler had command codes that might still work in the archive. Esrith knew the exact location from the scouting team, but they were not the only ones making plans. Station Security Chief Vrax had been watching Marcus's shop. He had noticed the unusual number of humans coming and going. He had noticed that the dragon was still there despite his orders. He had become suspicious. Vrax had access to station surveillance systems. He could not hear what was being said in the shop, but he could see the patterns. Meetings late at night, serious conversations, people bringing equipment. He reported his concerns to his superior officers. They told him to investigate further. They told him that humans were new and unpredictable. They told him to be careful. 3 days before the planned departure, Vrax made his move. He came to the shop during business hours with 6 other security officers. They surrounded the building. Vrax walked in. Marcus was cutting someone's hair. He looked up calmly. Marcus Chen, Vrax said formally. You are under arrest for harboring illegal fauna. Additionally, you are charged with conspiracy to commit theft. We have evidence that you are planning to steal property. What property? Marcus asked, still calm. The dragon you are keeping, Vrax said. Dragons are legally property. This one was abandoned by its owner 12 years ago in this sector. Under salvage law, it belongs to the station authority. You have stolen it. Marcus finished the haircut he was working on. He brushed off his customer and collected payment. Then he turned to face Vrax. He's not property, Marcus said. He's a person. His name is Kexlar. He was a fleet commander. He has more honor and dignity in one claw than you have in your entire body. Vrax's eyes narrowed. You will come with us. The dragon will be confiscated and disposed of as vermin. I don't think so, said a voice from the door. Sarah Park stood there, with James Rodriguez and Chen Wei behind her. Behind them were the other 9 humans Marcus had recruited. They all looked very calm. They all looked very determined. There are 6 of you and 13 of us, Sarah said, and we're recording everything. Every word you say, every action you take. It's being broadcast live to Earth, to the other human colonies, and to several news networks. Chen Wei held up her phone, showing that it was indeed recording and streaming. So here's what's going to happen, Sarah continued. You're going to leave. You're going to let Marcus continue his business, and you're going to stop harassing him and his friend. Because if you don't, every human in this sector is going to see exactly how you treat people who can't defend themselves. Vrax looked at the humans. He looked at the camera. He calculated the political problems this could cause. Finally, he spoke. This is not over, he said quietly. You are making a mistake. All of you. He turned and left, his officers following him. After they were gone, Marcus let out a breath he had been holding. That was close. Too close, James said. They know we're planning something. They'll be watching us now. They'll try to stop us if we attempt to leave the station. Then we need to leave now, Sarah said. Tonight, before they can organize a proper blockade or get authorization to arrest us all. KXLR emerged from the back room where he had been hiding during the confrontation. You are all taking great risks for me. For us, why? Marcus knelt down so he could look KXLR in the eye. Because it's the right thing to do. Because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Because if we don't stand up for you, who will we stand up for? Sarah smiled. Besides, we humans are stubborn. When someone tells us we can't do something, it just makes us want to do it more. That night they moved quickly. Sarah's cargo ship was docked in Bay 47. They smuggled equipment aboard in small batches, using regular cargo movements as cover. Marcus closed his shop, leaving a sign that said, "Gone on vacation, back in 2 weeks." He doubted it fooled anyone. But it was something. KXLR and Srith were hidden in cargo containers for the trip to the ship. It felt wrong to hide them like contraband, but it was necessary. By midnight, everyone was aboard. Sarah began the departure procedures. Station Control approved their flight plan without incident. They had filed it days ago for a standard cargo run to a nearby system. As the ship pulled away from the station, Marcus stood in the cockpit with Sarah. He watched the station grow smaller behind them. There's no going back now, Sarah said. No, Marcus agreed, but going forward is the right choice. Once they were clear of the station, Sarah changed course. They were no longer heading to the nearby system. They were heading to the Kessler Nebula, to Draken Prime, to the Archive. And behind them on the station, Vrax watched their ship disappear from the sensors. He smiled. It was not a nice smile. He picked up his communication device and made a call. They had expected this. They had prepared for this. Let the humans fly to Draken Prime. Let them find the Archive. They would be waiting. The journey through hyperspace took 3 days. For Marcus, it was 3 days of learning things he had never imagined. He spent hours talking with KXLR, listening to stories of the old empire, stories of worlds that no longer existed, stories of battles fought in the darkness between stars, stories of a civilization that had been great and proud and is now almost forgotten. KXLR told him about the day the first ships grew too large for Dragon Claws to operate, about watching his children being born smaller each generation, about the day he realized the empire was dying and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Sirith shared what life was like for modern dragons, how they had to hide their intelligence because showing it made them dangerous, how families were separated when some dragons were sold as pets, how young dragons were taught to forget, to pretend to survive by being invisible. Marcus told them about Earth, about human history, about Rome falling and being forgotten for centuries, about native peoples whose civilizations were destroyed and whose history was erased, about slavery and genocide and all the ways humans had hurt each other. We understand what it means to lose everything, Marcus said. We understand what it means when the powerful erase the weak from history. We've done it to ourselves. We've had it done to us. Maybe that's why we care, because we know how much it hurts. On the 3rd day, they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kessler Nebula. The nebula was beautiful. Clouds of purple and blue gas stretched across space. Stars shone through the gas like lanterns through fog. And in the center of the nebula, dark and dead, was Draken Prime. The world had once been beautiful, according to KXLR. It had oceans and forests and cities that stretched for hundreds of miles. Now it was gray and lifeless. The oceans had dried up. The forests were gone. The cities were ruins. What happened? Marcus asked. Orbital bombardment, KXLR said quietly. After the Empire fell, the Alliance wanted to make sure we could never return. They destroyed the atmosphere, poisoned the soil, made it uninhabitable. As they approached the planet, an automated message began broadcasting. Warning. This system is under quarantine. Radiation levels are lethal. All ships must maintain minimum distance of 10,000 kilometers. Violation will result in immediate destruction. Sarah checked her sensors. I'm not reading any dangerous radiation. The message is a lie. Of course it is, James said. They don't want anyone coming here. They don't want anyone finding what's hidden here. They landed on the surface near the coordinates Srith provided. The landing site was in what had once been a military complex. Broken structures surrounded them. Some were massive, built for dragons the size of ships. Others were smaller, from the later years when dragons were shrinking. Everyone put on environmental suits. The planet had no breathable atmosphere anymore. They gathered equipment, scanning devices, portable computers, data storage units, lights. Kixlar led the way. Even after 12,000 years, he remembered the layout. They walked through the ruins until they reached a collapsed building. Asrith pointed to a spot where rocks had been recently moved. "The scouting team found the entrance here," she said. James and 2 others cleared away the remaining debris. Beneath was a metal door, massive and ancient. Strange symbols covered it, the same symbols that were on Kexlar's collar. Kexlar approached the door. There was a panel beside it. He placed his claw on the panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the panel glowed. The door made a grinding sound. Slowly, impossibly, after 12,000 years, it began to open. Beyond was darkness. They turned on their lights and entered. The archive was enormous. Corridors stretched in every direction. Everything was built to the scale of the old dragons, the massive ones. The hallways were wide enough to drive a truck through. The ceilings were so high they disappeared into darkness above the lights. For Kizlar and Srith, walking through these halls must have been strange. They were so small now. The Empire had been built for giants, and they had become tiny. They walked deeper into the facility. Emergency lighting flickered on as they passed, triggered by motion sensors that still worked after all this time. They passed rooms full of ancient computers, storage chambers, meeting halls, a museum with artifacts from dragon history. Finally, they reached the central chamber. It was a massive room filled with data storage units. Holographic displays covered the walls. In the center was a control station. Kexlar approached the station. He spoke a series of commands in the old dragon language. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. The station came to life. Lights blazed. Displays activated. A holographic interface appeared. A voice spoke from the system. It was automated, artificial, but it used the dragon language. Kexlar responded. There was a back-and-forth exchange. Then Kexlar turned to the others. "It recognizes my command codes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "The system is intact. Everything is here." Chen Wei moved to the station with her equipment. "Let me start downloading everything. This is going to take time. There's an incredible amount of data here." While she worked, Marcus and the others explored the chamber. The holographic displays showed everything. Genetic records showing the slow change in dragon size over generations. Medical analysis of the plague. Treaties between the Draken Empire and dozens of other species, all recognizing dragons as fully sapient beings. Military logs from the final wars. Messages from dragon commanders as they watched their empire crumble. Scientific predictions that their descendants would be declared animals and enslaved. And most damning of all, intercepted communications from the Alliance. Plans to use the plague. Discussions about how to legally classify dragons after the Empire fell. Strategies for covering up the genocide. "This is incredible," Marcus said. "This proves everything. The Tikrin, the Zephians, the Morlocks, and 3 other species. They planned it all. They committed genocide. They covered it up with laws." "How long to download everything?" Sarah asked Chen Wei. "At least 4 hours," Chen Wei replied. "There's thousands of years of history here." They settled in to wait. Kexlar stood before the holographic displays, watching the history of his people play out. Srith stayed close to him, seeing for the first time the empire she had only heard about in stories. 2 hours passed. Then Sarah's radio crackled. It was one of the team members they had left on the ship. "We have a problem," the voice said. "Ships are entering orbit. Military vessels. At least 20 of them." Everyone froze. "What kind of ships?" Sarah asked. "Tikrin military. They're broadcasting a message. They say we're trespassing in a quarantine zone. They're ordering us to surrender." Marcus looked at Chen Wei. "How much longer?" "At least another 2 hours," she said. "We don't have 2 hours," James said. "If they attack the ship, we're stranded here." Suddenly, more voices crackled over the radio. "Not from their ship. From other ships. Human ships. This is the cargo vessel Fortune's Favor. We received a distress call from Marcus Chen. We're here to help. This is the transport ship New Horizon." Marcus Chen called for backup. "We're not leaving." More voices. More ships. Human vessels were arriving from multiple directions. Cargo ships, transport ships, private vessels, even a couple of small Earth military patrol craft. Marcus looked confused. "I never sent a distress call." Sarah smiled. "I did, before we left the station. I sent a message to every human ship in 3 sectors. I told them what we were doing. I told them why, and I asked them to come if we needed help. And they came, Marcus said wonderingly. Of course they came, Sarah said. We're human. When one of us calls for help against injustice, we answer. The radio crackled again. This time it was a Tikrin voice. Human vessels, you are interfering with official Tikrin military operations. Leave the system immediately or face consequences. A human voice responded. It was deep and calm. This is Captain Torres of the Earth defense ship Valiant. We are here to protect Earth citizens. Marcus Chen has requested assistance. We are not leaving. You are welcome to try to make us, but I don't recommend it. There was a long silence. The Tikrin were calculating. They had more ships. But humans had a reputation. In the 2 years since joining the galactic community, humans had been involved in 3 separate conflicts. They had won all 3 despite being outnumbered. Humans fought with a crazy determination that made them dangerous. More importantly, the humans were broadcasting everything. Every word, every action. It was being sent to news networks across the galaxy. If the Tikrin attacked now, everyone would see it. Everyone would know what they were trying to hide. Keep downloading, Marcus said to Chen Wei. We're going to finish this. Another hour passed. The standoff in orbit continued. The Tikrin ships held position. The human ships surrounded Sarah's vessel, protecting it. More human ships kept arriving. Word had spread. Humans from across the sector were coming to help. Finally, Chen Wei looked up from her work. I have it, all of it. Every file, every record, everything. Then let's go home, Marcus said. We have a civilization to restore. They made it back to the surface safely. The team ran for the ship carrying all their equipment and data. Behind them, Kexler took one last look at the archive entrance. 12,000 years of history now preserved and safe. The ship lifted off. Above them, in orbit, the standoff continued. 20 Tikrin military vessels surrounded by almost 40 human ships now. More were still arriving. As they climbed through the atmosphere, Chen Wei was already working. She connected to the human communication network. She began uploading the archive data, not to one location, to dozens, to hundreds, to news networks, to universities, to government databases, to public servers. What are you doing? Kexler asked. Making sure they can't destroy it, Chen Wei said. If it only exists in one place, they can attack that place. But if it exists everywhere, they can't stop it. In 10 minutes, this information will be on 1,000 different servers across human space. There's no putting it back in the box. In orbit, the Tikrin commander realized what was happening. He gave the order to attack. But before his ships could fire, the human vessels moved. They did not fire their weapons. They simply positioned themselves between the Tikrin ships and Sarah's vessel. A human voice came over the radio. Captain Torres again. Fire on that ship and you fire on us. All of us. And we will respond. Are you really willing to start a war over a secret that's already been revealed? The Tikrin commander hesitated. He called his superiors. Decisions were made far above his rank. Finally, the Tikrin ships withdrew. Not because they wanted to, but because the political cost was too high. The data was out. Everyone could see it now. The truth about the Draken Empire. The truth about the plague. The truth about the genocide. And the truth about the cover-up. Sarah's ship joined the fleet of human vessels. Together they jumped to hyperspace. They were heading back to the station, back to face whatever came next. During the journey, the galaxy erupted. News networks played the archive footage non-stop. Genetic records, treaty documents, intercepted communications, everything. On the Tikrin homeworld, protests began. Young Tikrin, horrified by what their ancestors had done, demanded accountability. Other species that had been part of the Alliance faced similar protests. The Zephians, the Morlocks, all of them. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered. For the first time in 10,000 years, the classification of dragons as non-sapient was being challenged. Earth's representative stood before the council. Her name was Ambassador Chen. No relation to Marcus, but she shared his determination. The evidence is clear, she said. Dragons were sapient. Dragons are sapient. The legal classification was a lie. A cover-up for genocide. Earth demands immediate recognition of dragon sapience. We demand reparations. We demand justice. The Tikrin representative tried to argue, tried to defend the old laws, but the evidence was overwhelming. Other species, embarrassed by the cover-up, began to support Earth's position, not out of justice, out of politics. No one wanted to be seen defending genocide. The vote was called. 170 species voted to recognize dragon sapience. 20 voted against, 10 abstained. The law that had stood for 10,000 years was overturned in a single day. But changing a law was the easy part. Changing reality was harder. Marcus's ship returned to the station. He expected trouble. He expected Vrax to try to arrest them. Instead, he found something he never anticipated. A crowd, hundreds of beings. Mostly humans, but others too. And dozens of dragons, small dragons like Kixlar and Srith. They were waiting at the docking bay. When Marcus walked out with Kixlar and Srith, the crowd erupted. Cheering, applause, dragons flying in circles. It was overwhelming. One dragon landed in front of Kixlar. He was old with scales of faded gold. He bowed his head. "Commander," the dragon said, "we are free. After 10,000 years, we are finally free." Kixlar looked at all the faces, dragon and human, all looking at him with hope. With respect, with recognition. "We are not free yet," Kixlar said. "We have won a legal battle, but we must win the real battle. The battle to rebuild our identity, to remember who we were, to become who we can be." Over the following months, the galaxy changed, slowly, painfully, but it changed. Earth opened its borders to dragons. Hundreds came, then thousands. Humans helped them establish communities, helped them access the archive data, helped them remember their history. Marcus returned to his barber shop. But it was different now. The shop had become something more. A meeting place, a refuge, a symbol. Dragons came there not for charity but for community. Humans came there to learn, to listen. To build bridges, Esisrith was appointed as the first dragon ambassador to Earth. She spoke at the United Nations. She told the story of her people. She thanked humanity for their help. "You barely know us," she said. "You had no reason to help us. But you did. You fought for us. You risked your lives for us. Why?" She paused, looking at the faces before her. "I think I understand now. You helped us because you know what it means to be forgotten, to be dismissed, to be called less than you are. You helped us because you believe that every being deserves dignity, not because of their size or their power, but because of who they are." She looked directly at the camera, knowing her words were being broadcast across the galaxy. "You helped us because you are human, and we will never forget that." Vrax was removed from his position. An investigation found evidence that he had known about the archive for years, that he had been ordered to prevent anyone from finding it. He was tried and convicted of conspiracy. Other officials faced similar charges, but not all T'Krin were like Vrax. Many young T'Krin joined the effort to help dragons. They felt shame for what their ancestors had done. They wanted to make things right. 5 years after Marcus first read Kixlar's collar, a ceremony was held on Earth. It was in Geneva, at the Museum of Human Rights. A new wing was being opened, the Galactic Justice Wing. At the center of the first exhibit was a glass case. Inside was Kixlar's collar, the collar that had been ignored for centuries. The collar that one human had taken the time to read. Next to it was Marcus's barber sign. The simple sign that had hung outside his shop. The sign that said, "All welcome." At the ceremony, Kixlar stood on a stage. He was older now, but he stood straight. He spoke clearly. His voice was strong. "I have lived for over 900 years, he said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen civilizations born and destroyed. I have seen the best and worst that sapient beings can be." He looked at Marcus, who stood in the crowd. "I thought I would die forgotten. Just another old dragon in a galaxy that no longer cared. But one human took the time to look. To really look. To see past my size and see who I was. That one act of recognition changed everything. The lesson here is simple," Kixlar said. "Never dismiss someone because of how they appear. Size does not determine worth. Power does not determine value. Every being has a story. Every being deserves to be seen." After the ceremony, Marcus and Kixlar walked through the exhibit together. It showed the history of the Draken Empire. The plague, the fall, the long centuries of being forgotten, and the restoration. A young human girl approached them. She was maybe 6 years old. She held her mother's hand. In her other arm, she carried a small dragon. A pet, Marcus assumed at first, but then the mother spoke. My daughter wanted to meet you. We adopted Zafira 3 months ago. She's been helping us understand dragon culture. She's teaching us your language. The small dragon, Zafira, looked at Kexlar. She bowed her head in the traditional dragon greeting. Kexlar returned the gesture. You wear a collar too, the little girl said, pointing at Zafira's neck. What does yours say? The mother pulled out her phone and scanned the collar. It says Zafira Vustraken, born in freedom. May she always remember. May she always be remembered. Kexlar's eyes grew bright with tears. The first generation born after the Restoration. Born free, born with rights, born into a world where they would be recognized. Remember this, Marcus said to the little girl, kneeling down so he was at her level. Every person you meet has a history. Every being has value. Always take time to look. Always take time to listen. Always take time to read the collar. You never know what you might find. The girl nodded seriously. I will, she promised. Years passed. Kexlar lived for another 200 years, long enough to see the first dragon-human colony established, long enough to see dragons reclaim 3 of their old worlds, long enough to see a new generation grow up free. When he finally died, it was peacefully, surrounded by friends, dragons and humans both. His collar was placed in the museum next to Marcus's Barber sign, a reminder of where it all began. Marcus continued his work for another 30 years. His shop remained open, though he spent more time teaching than cutting hair. He taught young people, human and alien alike, about the importance of recognition, about dignity, about taking the time to see who someone really is. Decades later, a historian interviewed an elderly Srith. She had become one of the most important dragon leaders. She had negotiated treaties, established schools, written books about dragon history. What was the most important moment? The historian asked. In all the years of the Restoration, what mattered most? Thank you for watching and comment for next part.